Ethan makes $190,000 a year. He has a good apartment in a good neighborhood. He drives a car that turns heads. He wears clothes that fit right. He goes to the right restaurants. He takes one real vacation a year, sometimes two. From the outside, Ethan looks exactly like what success is supposed to look like. From the inside, Ethan checks his bank account on the 12th of the month and feels a specific kind of quiet dread. Not panic, not crisis, just that low-grade financial anxiety that never fully goes away. The kind that sits behind everything. Behind the dinner out, behind the vacation, behind the LinkedIn post about the promotion. Every month the money comes in, and every month it disappears, and Ethan cannot fully explain where. He's not irresponsible, he's not gambling, he does not have a secret problem. He just earns a lot of money, and somehow has very little to show for it. And he is not alone, not even close. Here is the first thing nobody tells you about earning $190,000. You do not take home $190,000. After federal income tax at Ethan's bracket, 32% on income above $191,950 for 2024, 24% below it, state income tax in his state of California at 9.3%, Social Security, Medicare, and his health insurance premium, Ethan takes home approximately $9,800 per month. His gross sounds like $15,833 per month. His actual spending money is $9,800. That gap, nearly $6,000 per month between what he earns and what he sees, is the first place the illusion begins. Because Ethan makes lifestyle decisions based on what he earns, not on what he keeps. He signed a lease on an apartment that felt appropriate for someone earning $190,000. He bought a car that felt appropriate. He accepted social invitations that felt appropriate. He built a life around a gross income number he almost never actually touches. His rent in a desirable part of Los Angeles, $3,400 per month. Not extravagant for the market, not a penthouse, a two-bedroom apartment in a building with a gym and a doorman where the rent felt justified at the time he signed. After rent, Ethan has $6,400. His car payment on a 3-year-old luxury SUV he financed, $780 per month. Insurance, $290. He told himself this was responsible. He bought used. He financed over 6 years to keep the payment manageable. After the car, $5,330. This is where it starts feeling uncomfortable, and we have not touched groceries yet. Ethan does not think of himself as someone with a spending problem. And he is right. He does not. He has a lifestyle problem, which is different, more invisible, more socially reinforced, and considerably harder to fix. Groceries and dining, $1,100 per month. He meal preps on Sundays. He also eats out with colleagues 3 times a week because that is how business gets done at his level. He also Uber Eats twice a week because he works late. The number feels embarrassing when he sees it written down. It is also completely normal for his income level and his city. Utilities and subscriptions, $380. Internet, streaming services, Spotify, the gym he uses twice a week, the parking spot that came with the building but costs extra, the cloud storage, the software subscriptions he needed for a project 2 years ago and never canceled, student loans, $640 per month. He graduated with $67,000 in debt from a program that got him to this income. By any measure, it was worth it. He will be making this payment for 6 more years. Childcare. Ethan has a 4-year-old daughter. Full-time childcare in Los Angeles runs between $2,000 and $3,200 per month. He pays $2,200. This is not optional. This is the cost of going to work. After all of this, Ethan has approximately $1,010 left. $1,000 from $190,000 per year. And we have not yet mentioned the credit card balance that never fully reaches zero, the flight home for his father's surgery last year, the security deposit and moving costs from 2 years ago, the furniture that went on a card when he moved in. The balance sits at $9,400 and moves between $8,000 and $11,000 depending on the month. Here is what makes Ethan's situation genuinely uncomfortable to look at. He is not building wealth, not really. He contributes 6% to his 401k because his employer matches 3%, and that felt like the right move. At 6% of $190,000, he is putting away $11,400 per year into retirement. His 401k balance at 38 years old is $94,000. According to Fidelity's 2024 retirement savings benchmarks, a 38-year-old should have approximately 3 times their annual salary saved for retirement. At Ethan's income, that benchmark is $570,000. He has $94,000. He is $476,000 behind a benchmark built for people who earn far less than him. And his emergency fund, the 3 to 6 months of expenses that every financial guideline recommends, sits at $6,800. His monthly expenses are approximately $8,790, excluding the occasional larger costs. He has less than 1 month of real runway if his income stops. Ethan is 38 years old, earns $190,000 per year, and is genuinely one bad quarter away from financial stress that would surprise everyone who knows him. This is where high earners quietly get trapped, not in dramatic failure, in the slow accumulation of a life that costs exactly as much as it earns. A life where the income is impressive and the net worth is not, where the external picture looks like success and the internal reality is a very expensive kind of treading water. Ethan did not decide to live this way. It assembled itself, one reasonable decision at a time. The apartment made sense when he signed it. His salary had just increased, the neighborhood was good for his daughter's school, the commute was shorter. It was the right move at the time. The car was a practical choice. He needed something reliable. He had been driving a 10-year-old sedan and it was starting to cost him in repairs. The SUV was used. He did not buy new. He told himself that counts as being sensible. The childcare is simply the cost of having a child in an expensive city while working a demanding job. There is no alternative that does not compromise either his career or his daughter's care. Each decision, examined individually, was defensible. Together, they built a life that requires $190,000 per year to maintain and produces almost nothing in residual wealth. This is lifestyle inflation, not the dramatic kind, not a yacht or a second home or a wardrobe that belongs in a magazine, the quiet kind. The kind that happens when a modest upgrade here and a reasonable addition there accumulates into a cost structure that precisely consumes everything coming in. According to research published in the Journal of Economic Perspectives, consumption spending rises in nearly direct proportion to income gains for middle and upper middle income households. People do not save more when they earn more, they spend more. The lifestyle expands to fill the available income almost automatically. Ethan did not spend his way into this. His life just cost more every year than it did the year before, and his income mostly kept pace, and nothing changed. There is one more cost Ethan carries that does not appear on any statement. He earns $190,000, and the people in his life know roughly what that means. His colleagues at his income level take the team to dinner when the deal closes. They split the Airbnb for the bachelor party weekend without making it a conversation. They upgrade to business class on the international flight because it is a long flight and everyone else is. None of those individual costs are catastrophic. Each one is $200 or $400 or $600, but they arrive frequently, and not participating has a social cost that is difficult to quantify and very difficult to absorb repeatedly without consequences to relationships that matter for his career. The social expectations attached to a certain income level are a real tax that does not appear in any paycheck calculation. Harvard economists have a term for this: expenditure cascades, the tendency for consumption norms to flow downward from high-income households and create spending pressure on those below and within the same tier. Ethan feels this pressure from above, from colleagues who earn more, and creates it for others who earn less. It is not keeping up with the Joneses. It is that the Joneses went to the same business school, work in the same building, and are going to the same dinner this Thursday. Here is the uncomfortable reality. Earning $190,000 per year does not automatically create wealth. Earning $190,000 per year and spending $189,000 creates a very expensive lifestyle and essentially no financial progress. Wealth is not income. Wealth is the gap between income and spending multiplied by time and compounded by investment returns. Ethan's gap is approximately $1,000 per month on $190,000 per year. After taxes, that is a 10% savings rate on take-home pay. The median American household saves approximately 4.6% of disposable income, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis 2024 data. Ethan is above the median. He is also 38 years old with $94,000 in retirement savings and a credit card balance that does not go away. The math is quietly brutal. If Ethan continues his current trajectory, the same lifestyle, the same savings rate, the same 401k contribution, he reaches 65 with approximately $680,000 in retirement savings in nominal terms. At the 4% safe withdrawal rate, that is $27,200 per year in portfolio income. Added to a Social Security benefit of approximately $38,000 per year based on his earnings history, his retirement income is roughly $65,000 per year. He currently spends $105,000 per year to maintain his life. The gap between what he will have and what his lifestyle costs is not a small rounding error. It is a complete restructuring of his life that he is not currently planning for. Ethan is not a warning about excess. He is a portrait of how ordinary a high income can become when life assembles itself around it. He did not fail. He did not make catastrophic mistakes. He earned well, spent in ways that felt reasonable, and ended up in a place that looks like success and functions like a very well-dressed financial treadmill. The uncomfortable truth about high income is that it does not solve the core problem. It raises the stakes of the core problem. Because the higher your income, the more expensive the lifestyle that feels appropriate. And the more expensive the lifestyle, the harder it becomes to find the gap where wealth actually grows. Freedom does not come from earning more. It comes from the distance between what comes in and what goes out. Ethan can earn $190,000 his entire career and retire into financial stress. Or he can earn the same amount and make one serious structural decision, one real change in where the money goes when it arrives, and retire with genuine options. The income was never the issue. It was never going to be the issue. The question was always what happened to it after it hit the account. Subscribe to Wealth Science. No easy answers, no generic advice, just the honest picture of how money actually works in real American financial lives. See you in the next one.